The story begins with a young boy playing in the forest. He notices a bright golden light and goes to investigate. From the light, a girl and an old man emerge. The girl asks the boy for his name, and he introduces himself as Satou. She introduces herself as Hime Nanoka and requests that Satou keep what he saw a secret. Hime suggests that it's best to forget about it, but in return, she promises to be his friend. Satou feels a strong urge to protect her and decides to keep that thought with him forever. 10 years pass, and Hime wakes up Satou. She has prepared breakfast for him, and Satou is impressed by the luxurious meal. Hime mentions that it's the start of summer break, and she woke up early without realizing it. Satou recalls that Hime Nanoka is his childhood friend, and she moved into the house next door a decade ago. She lives with her grandfather since she doesn't have parents. Satou notices that Hime has changed a lot since starting high school, particularly her physical appearance, and he playfully teases her about it. Hime explains that deliberately keeping a low profile would only draw more attention to her unique hair, and she believes that, as a princess, it's essential for her to be strong. Satou recalls that Hime has been referring to herself as a princess since childhood, and she playfully gets close to him, making him feel embarrassed. However, all she does is pick a grain of rice from around his mouth and eat it, easing his embarrassment. The scene transitions to the two of them leaving for school, where they greet Hime's grandfather before heading out. On the way, Hime inquires if Satou's father is still not home, and he explains that his father won't return until after summer break. Hime expresses sympathy, but Satou assures her that he's used to it. Satou also notices the rings on Hime's neck, which remind him of the promise they made as children. In their childhood, Hime had told him that these rings were meant for the man she would marry someday, and she asked Satou to marry her when they grew up. However, now she playfully tells him she won't give them to him because they're important to her. Satou thinks to himself that childhood promises shouldn't be taken seriously, and the scene shifts to their arrival at school. Hime proudly shows off her test scores to her friends, who praise her for her intelligence. Hime mentions that, as a princess, it's her duty to be smart, prompting her friends to wonder which country's princess she represents. Meanwhile, Satou talks with some of his friends, and one of them comments on how great it must be to have a girlfriend, noting that Satou comes to school with Hime every day. Satou explains that they walk together because she lives next door. As he's chatting with his friends, Satou receives a message from Hime inviting him to the summer festival. She instructs him to meet her in front of the shrine at 6 in the evening. Satou is curious why she's sending him a message, but he believes it's okay to be hopeful. Later, Satou meets Hime at a shrine and is surprised by her yukata outfit. Hime playfully asks if he's captivated by her appearance, and Satou admits he is, which makes Hime blush. They both enjoy the festival together. Hime expresses her excitement for festivals and recalls a childhood memory of getting lost in one. Satou had held her hand to keep them from getting separated, and Hime thought he was cool back then. Satou wonders if he's still cool now, and Hime playfully says she doesn't know, suggesting they get some food. Hime buys Choco Banana, and at a shooting stall, she asks Satou to win a stuffed toy for her. Satou hesitates, worried about their relationship, but he also doesn't want things to stay the same. He wins the toy for her, and they watch fireworks at the shrine. Satou tries to confess his feelings during the fireworks, but he's interrupted, and Hime mentions that the fireworks are beautiful. She expresses her gratitude for watching them together. Suddenly, she reveals a secret. She's decided to move. Satou is surprised and asks when she's leaving. She tells him she's leaving for her grandfather's hometown the next day. They return to their apartment building, and Hime thanks Satou for the wonderful night watching the fireworks. Satou asks if she really has to leave, but Hime ignores him, saying he gave her a memorable night. In bed, Satou wonders where Hime is going, realizing he thought he knew everything about her but actually knew nothing. Satou notices a golden light coming from the mountains, reminding him of the day he first met Hime. He goes to the source and finds Hime there. He asks her not to go, and Hime is surprised that Satou remembers their first meeting. She admits she lied about moving away and is leaving for a different world. She reveals she's going to get married as she's a princess. She bids farewell to Satou, who decides he won't just watch her leave. He steps into the golden light, waking up in a palace where he witnesses Hime marrying a prince. Wedding attendees are surprised to see Satou, and the priest asks Hime to perform the sacred kiss. Satou calls out to Hime, and the prince questions who he is. A monster then enters the palace, known as an abyssal creature. Hime's grandfather, Alabaster, tries to fight it but is distracted by seeing Satou in this world, leading to the monster defeating him. Alabaster, Hime's grandfather, asks Hime to give the ring of light to the prince. Still, Hime notices that Satou is in danger and kisses him instead. She gives him her ring, and the prince believes Princess Crystal has made her decision. He hands Satou a sword, leaving Satou confused about what to do with it. The monster approaches him, and the sword and ring start to glow. Satou slashes the monster in one strike, then faints. When he wakes up in bed, he asks Hime where he is. Hime informs him they're in the royal couple's bedchamber, and she explains they shared the kiss of the oath. Satou wonders if this means Hime loves him. Hime reveals she was supposed to marry the prince, but knew nothing about him, so she chose Satou when she saw a familiar face. Satou can't believe this is why Hime chose him, and Hime apologizes for making him her hero. Later, maids discuss the Ring King, who came from another world and defeated an abyssal creature with a single strike. Later, Satou meets with some important people in the palace. They whisper about how the wedding was supposed to make the relationship between the Empire and the Kingdom of Light stronger. They worry that when the king finds out, he'll be very angry. The prince, however, explains that the man chosen by the Ring Princess is the Ring King, the savior of the world. Both he and Satou are just following their destiny to save the world, regardless of what the king thinks. People in the room gossip about how the second prince is very proud of himself. Alabaster, Hime's grandfather, clarifies that he brought the Ring King here because they wanted to meet him. He introduces Satou to the entire kingdom, and Satou feels nervous being in the spotlight. Alabaster asks Satou to say something, and Satou notices the cheering crowd. Alabaster tells Satou that everyone has been waiting for the Ring King, and he represents hope for their world. Encouraged by the support, Satou proclaims himself as the Ring King, someone who has come from another world to save them all, their hero. The scene shifts to Satou taking a bath, where he reflects on his earlier words. Unexpectedly, Hime joins him in the bath. She explains that they are officially married, and she asks Satou not to look at her. They bathe together, and Hime apologizes for causing trouble for Satou. She acknowledges that he was never meant to be a part of this situation, but Satou reassures her that he's willing to stay. Satou explains that the monster from yesterday was after her, and the ring she carried. Since he's the only one who can save her, he won't leave her side. Hime recalls how when she first started school, everyone avoided her because of her unusual hair color, but Satou was different. He came to her rescue, and she thanks him. Satou, with a mischievous glance, attempts to sneak a peek at Hime's chest, but she covers herself and says that royal family weddings are merely formalities. She insists that she only made him her husband by accident, and he shouldn't feel responsible. Satou agrees but expresses his happiness at being chosen by Hime. She asks if he likes her a lot, and he confirms it, calling her his most important friend. They hear bells ringing outside and wonder what's happening. Rushing to the palace gate, they discover that soldiers are speculating about their activities in the bedroom. Hime clarifies that they haven't been intimate yet. The soldiers inform them that they are under attack by abyssal creature and that the monster Satou defeated earlier was likely a scout. They request Satou's assistance, despite his lack of combat experience. Hime interjects, expressing concern for Satou's safety. Alabaster reminds them that Satou must fight since he possesses the ring. They equip Satou with an axe and explain that the Ring of Light is a powerful weapon against the abyss, capable of banishing evil. Although Satou is unsure about the world's situation, he is determined to save Hime's life and agrees to help. Before Satou leaves, Hime kisses him and asks him to vanquish the evil creatures and save their world from turmoil. We then see a maid in the castle is under attack by an abyssal creature, but Satou bravely comes to her rescue. He tells the maid to get to a safe place, and thinks about how he has already defeated 3 monsters, though his power weakened quickly in his previous battle. Alabaster explains that the power in Satou's ring comes from the bond with the princess, Hime, and her kiss. Alabaster tells Satou that part of Hime's duty is to support the Ring King in battle. However, sustaining this power will be difficult for Satou. Alabaster reassures him that he will help. Satou asks Alabaster if he is as powerful as others say, referring to him as a great sage. Alabaster confirms he is. Just then a powerful enemy leader, the Knight of the Abyss King, appears. Satou tries to fight the knight but is quickly defeated and his weapon is destroyed. He's surprised to find he's still alive and wonders if the ring's power protected him. Alabaster tells Satou to run, and they head back into the castle, but 2 abyssal creatures chase them. Satou struggles to even get close to the knight, and Alabaster explains the knight is a fearsome monster with powerful magic. Satou wonders if they can fight the knight using the ring's power, but Alabaster tells him they need to focus on escaping and uses his magic to stop the creatures chasing them. As they try to escape again, they are blocked by the knight. Suddenly, the prince from earlier attacks the knight and tells them he has prepared a carriage for their escape. Satou is concerned about Hime being left in the castle, but the prince reassures him. They escape in the carriage, where Hime is relieved to see Satou safe. The prince explains that the monsters have captured the southern tower, so he took action to save Hime. Satou asks for the prince's name, and he introduces himself as Marmaruji, the second prince of the Jazara Empire. Satou finds his name difficult to pronounce, so the prince suggests Satou call him Marsh. Satou asks Alabaster if Kingdom will be okay, and Alabaster explains that currently, the Abyss King is focusing on chasing the Ring King and his ring. Once the monsters learn they've left the castle, they'll start searching for them, but hopefully, there won't be more casualties. Alabaster admits it's nearly impossible to defeat the Knight of the Abyss King without the power of light, leading Satou to feel he must be the one to conquer him. Alabaster clarifies they're fleeing because Satou's Ring King powers are weak. For him to fully harness his power, he must collect the other 4 rings. Satou realizes this means marrying 4 more girls, and Alabaster confirms his next mission is to wed the other 4 princesses and obtain their rings. Satou objects to polygamy, but Alabaster frames it as an exciting adventure and a man's dream. Meanwhile, Hime struggles to hide her discomfort with this plan. The scene shifts to the group at an inn with only 2 rooms available. Alabaster suggests he should stay with the princess for her safety, but Hime disagrees. The prince suggests she shares a room with her husband, Satou. Later, during a meeting, Alabaster briefs Satou on the true role of the Ring King. Long ago, the Abyss King aimed to dominate the world with dark power, unleashing countless monsters and causing nations to fall. The Ring King, wielding rings of light, fire, water, wind, and earth, sealed the Abyss King away after a prolonged battle. The rings, infused with his magical power, were given to his 5 wives and returned to their countries. These rings, passed down through generations, symbolize the bond between the princesses and the Ring King. Now, with the Abyss King's resurrection and his quest for power, it falls upon the Ring King to seal him away again. To do this, Satou must marry the 5 princesses and gather the 5 rings. In his room, Satou is deep in thought when Hime tells him not to overthink their marriage, calling it a sham. Suddenly, Satou feels pain and wonders if he was injured in the recent battle. Concerned, Hime asks Satou to remove his shirt, and upon doing so, she discovers several wounds on his back. Blaming herself for choosing him as the Ring King, Hime runs away in tears. Worried, Satou goes looking for Hime and encounters Mars. He asks if Mars has seen Hime, and Mars confirms she just ran past him. Mars sympathizes with the heavy burden of being the Ring King, but Satou insists it's not overwhelming. Mars thanks Satou for taking on the Ring King role, freeing him from that duty. He observes that Hime must be special to Satou, given his journey from his world to follow her. Mars encourages Satou, saying pursuing love is not easy and should be a source of pride. Apologizing for the delay, Mars directs Satou to the backyard where Hime might be. Satou rushes off, leaving Mars admiring his courage. In the backyard, Satou finds Hime and confesses his feelings for her, clarifying it's more than friendship. He reassures her that he's here by choice, and she shouldn't feel guilty. Hime admits her worries, explaining she was prepared to forget her previous life as Hime Nanoka to fulfill her role as the Princess of Light. Ready to marry a stranger for the world's fate, her resolve wavered when Satou, the man she loves, entered this world. She knows her husband, the Ring King, faces battles and must marry other princesses, but she struggles with these realities. Satou apologizes, and Hime decides to stop worrying. She resolves to be Satou's real wife and support him as the Ring King. She asks Satou if he'll accept her as his wife, and Satou agrees. In their room, Satou and Hime find themselves in an awkward situation following their recent commitment. They're unsure of their next steps now that Hime is officially Satou's wife. Satou impulsively moves closer to her but then hesitates, feeling that something isn't right. He notices Hime is trembling and decides to stop, telling her they shouldn't rush into things. Satou expresses his desire for their first intimate moment to be more meaningful, having waited 10 years for this. He suggests they take their time as a married couple, leading to a shared kiss. The next morning, Alabaster asks them how they slept. Hime says she slept well but internally says that she couldn't sleep at all. Alabaster is disappointed to hear that they didn't take their relationship further despite the romantic atmosphere. Satou and Hime are shocked to learn Alabaster was watching them. Alabaster reassures them that strengthening their bond is crucial, as it powers the Ring King. Mars arrives, bringing Satou and Hime cloaks to blend into their surroundings. Alabaster then announces their next destination is the Elf Country, known as Lanka of the Wind, where the Ring of Wind, an elven heirloom, is located. He teases Satou about the elves' renowned beauty, but Hime reminds him that she is Satou's true wife. Elsewhere, in Lanka, the elven princess expresses her disdain for the Ring King. Alabaster recounts that Lanka, a hub of knowledge, was once a sacred place. However, 50 years ago, a gust barrier appeared around it, changing the nation. Alabaster recalls visiting Lanka before the barrier existed. As Satou and the group approach the barrier, a bear-like creature attacks them. With no escape route due to the barrier, they find themselves running from the wild animal. Satou hears a voice guiding them to safety, leading him and the others into a tree. The barrier then sweeps the bear away. They meet the owners of the voices and realize they are elves. Alabaster thanks the elves for their help and starts explaining their situation. But Satou interrupts, revealing he is the Ring King in search of their princess. Hime quietly scolds him, noting that not all nations with rings are eager to join their cause. The elves agree to escort them to the palace but warn that things might not go as expected. The elves explain they must travel through the roots of a giant tree to reach Lanka, admitting the narrow path is inconvenient but keeps large beasts out of the city. Once in the city, they are taken to the throne room, where they find the throne empty. Hime then spots the princess hiding behind the throne. Satou introduces himself as the Ring King from another world to the princess. She inquires if Satou is married and have they already done it. Hime is shocked by the princess's blunt question, but the princess clarifies she's referring to a kiss. Satou confirms he has kissed, prompting Hime to assert that Satou already possesses the Ring of Light. She urges the elven princess to follow tradition and grants Satou her ring to help defeat the Abyss King. The elven princess, finding the idea of kissing too gross, runs away, leaving Satou surprised by her reaction. Prince Jade Rank arrives and comments on his sister's reclusive nature, hinting at the difficulty of obtaining a ring from her. When Satou identifies himself as the rumored new Ring King, Jade summons his guards, who then detain Satou, while assuring that his companions will be treated well. Jade explains his actions by emphasizing his sister Nephrite's delicate sensibilities, defending her as innocent and kind, despite her shy and childlike behavior. Jade reveals his overprotectiveness, explaining that Nephrite has never left the royal palace and is unaccustomed to strangers. Despite being 54 years old, Jade considers her too young for marriage and sees it as his duty to protect and care for her. He then informs Satou that he will be detained for the next 80 years, until Nephrite matures, leaving Satou locked up as he departs. After Jade decides to imprison Satou, an elf questions his decision, but Jade confidently states that their impenetrable wind barrier, powered by the Ring of Wind, keeps them safe from any threats, including the Abyss King. Their priority is to safeguard this ring, ensuring their country's protection. 3 days have passed since Satou's confinement, and he despairs at his situation until an elven woman visits him, inquiring about his intentions with the 5 rings. Satou expresses his simple desire to please Hime, which the woman finds admirably odd. She introduces herself as someone committed to her nation's future and criticizes Jade's decision to imprison Satou, who could be pivotal in opposing the Abyss King. Contrary to preserving the barrier for protection, she views it as a restraint on their people. She leads Satou through a secret passage to where the Ring of Wind is kept, revealing it placed in the hands of statues, which Satou assumes to represent the princess's parents. However, their visit is interrupted by Princess Nephrite, who prays to the statues, expressing her determination not to be taken away, and to uphold her mother's wishes to protect their peace. The elven woman explains to Satou that the statues are not mere representations, but the petrified forms of the former elven king and queen. They've become stone guardians, their lives sacrificed to maintain the barrier through the ring's power. Satou is shocked to learn the true guardians of the ring are Nephrite's petrified parents, symbolizing the heavy burden and legacy of protection that the royal family bears. Nephrite overhears a noise, and, suspecting someone's presence, asks them to reveal themselves. Satou, trying to avoid detection, steps out, causing Nephrite to scream and faint. Satou catches her to prevent her from hitting the ground. A soldier, alerted by the scream, rushes to investigate, but Satou and the woman quickly depart with the unconscious princess. As they escape, Satou inquires about their destination. The woman, revealing herself as an elder familiar with the palace, assures him of her knowledge of the area. Meanwhile, Jade discovers Nephrite is missing and begins a frantic search throughout the palace. Satou reflects on the elder's words about Nephrite's resilience despite her sheltered life. The elder entrusts Satou with the mission to obtain Nephrite's ring before leaving them alone. When Nephrite regains consciousness, she's startled to find herself with Satou, who reassures her of his harmless intentions, but she reacts with hostility. Jade learns of Satou's escape and suspects him of abducting Nephrite. The elder confirms Jade's suspicion and suggests that Satou and Nephrite have eloped, a notion that baffles Jade given Nephrite's timid nature. The elder challenges Jade to accept the reality that Nephrite might no longer express love for him, causing Jade to panic. She emphasizes that Nephrite's destiny is to inherit the Ring of Wind, criticizing Jade's overprotectiveness as contrary to Nephrite's interest. Despite Jade's insistence that the ring's current guardians, their petrified parents, adequately protect the nation, he vows to search the elder's residence. Back at the elder's residence, Satou, having washed their clothes, receives an apology from Nephrite for the inconvenience. This simple interaction underscores the burgeoning understanding and dynamics between Satou the princess, and the elder amidst the unfolding events surrounding the Ring of Wind and the protective barrier. Satou reassures the princess that washing their clothes was no trouble, especially after her unfortunate incident. Nephrite admits she's always been afraid of outsiders due to her sheltered upbringing within the palace walls. Learning that Satou hails from another world, she's intrigued but apprehensive, fearing the unknown. Satou explains his world is peaceful and devoid of monsters, sparking Nephrite's curiosity about whether elves exist there. When Satou confirms there are no elves in his world, Nephrite expresses a mixture of disappointment and fascination. Despite her sheltered life, she's curious about the world beyond the palace but is hesitant to confront the reality of it, finding solace in books and her imagination. Satou finds a common ground between them, revealing his journey to this world wasn't driven by special powers but by his desire to be with someone he loves. He encourages Nephrite, suggesting that despite challenges, there's always a way to explore and experience more. Excited by the prospect, Nephrite expresses a wish to see Satou's world, to which Satou agrees, gently reminding her to dress appropriately. Their conversation takes a turn when Jade and others arrive, demanding Nephrite's presence. The moment highlights Nephrite's internal conflict between her curiosity for the outside world and the constraints of her royal life, setting the stage for a decision that could change her life forever. Satou explains to Nephrite that he pursued the role of Ring King solely to be with his beloved Hime, with his current quest being to gather all the rings. He emphasizes that he doesn't want to coerce Nephrite into marriage. The choice is hers. Nephrite, determined, believes her brother will eventually come around to understanding her decision. When they confront Jade, Nephrite, initially shielded by Satou, steps forward to defend Satou's character against Jade's accusations. She argues that despite the ring's current guardianship by their parents, it's inevitable that she'll one day inherit it, acknowledging she can't always rely on Jade's protection. This defiance angers Jade, who accuses her of betrayal, leading Nephrite to reluctantly side with him. Jade then publicly accuses Satou of not only escaping confinement but also kidnapping Nephrite, vowing consequences. The elder intervenes, claiming responsibility for the situation, countering Jade's actions towards Satou as equally questionable. She promises to monitor Satou, to which Jade consents, albeit with the stipulation that Satou and Nephrite must not meet again. In a later conversation with Hime, she expresses concern for Satou's well-being. Satou assures her of his safety, but Hime notes the apparent bond formed between Satou and Nephrite during the ordeal. Satou questions Hime about possibly being jealous of his interaction with Nephrite, to which Hime playfully asks if that's wrong. Satou reassures there's nothing wrong, just as Elder Peridot, Lachma's oldest elf, arrives and introduces herself to Hime. Satou inquires about Nephrite's behavior and its relation to her parents. Peridot shares Lachma's history, explaining the barrier, and Nephrite's demeanor stem from a past event. Nephrite's mother wasn't the first choice for the throne due to her sister, who fell in love with a human traveler. This relationship caused uproar among the elves, fearing the outsider might take the Ring of Wind or had ill intention. Rumors and paranoia escalated, but the princess's love persisted until the traveler's mysterious departure, whether expelled or worse. Satou is shocked by the extreme measures taken over the rings. Alabaster adds context, stating the rings symbolize power and national pride since ancient times, coveted by those without. Peridot reveals the elder sister cursed Lachma upon leaving, predicting its downfall and the end of the ring's lineage. Such curses weigh heavily on elves, given their longevity, casting a shadow of fear over the populace and royal family alike, illustrating the depth of historical wounds within Lachma. After the older sister's departure, Nephrite's parents took charge of the Ring of Wind. To protect Lanka from the curse and outsiders, they created a wind barrier, sacrificing themselves to become stone guardians. Before their transformation, they made Nephrite promise never to leave the barrier's safety, effectively imprisoning the nation and herself. Nephrite recalls the solemn vow she made to her parents. Her mother, in her final moments before becoming stone, urged Nephrite to stay within the nation's bounds, assuring her protection until a destined time. This memory brings Nephrite to tears, as she's reminded of the heavy responsibility and isolation her promise entails. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for next episode.